Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What do you mean funny? Funny how?
Have you ever gotten to the end of a day knowing that you had just crushed it? You've done everything in the world. You knocked out the to-do list, got to inbox 0, and had a meeting, worked on a proposal a little bit, made a little video, had 1,800 phone calls, and sent all the texts, all the emails, and then have a conversation with, let's say, your spouse. Say, well, what'd you do today? And you just look at them and say, I don't know. I've had more of those than I can count. Fewer in the past several years than I used to have. Unfortunately, that was my life for a long time. And unfortunately, for a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with, the freelancers, the solopreneurs, the people who have lots of employees and make 20 million, they have those days all of the time. We don't like it. It's frustrating to get to the end of the day and not really know, what did I do? Look, there is a very real but hidden cost of working on the wrong things. And the thing we always think of as first and foremost, our time is being lost. And as a dude who will be, I'm in the late 40s, which means I'm on the back half. I'm in the third quarter of life, so to speak. I've already crossed halftime and the show is already over. I don't really have a lot of time to mess around with, but as important, in some cases, we're also wasting money. You're wasting effort. You're wasting energy. So 4 things I want to cover with you right now. First and foremost, I want to talk about why this keeps happening. If we don't figure out why it keeps happening, we won't fix it. Second thing is, I'm going to give you some very clear examples, real world experience of where I've seen other people fix this issue and how you can do the same thing. And then I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions on what you have to do to fix it. And lastly, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen if you don't fix it. So here's kind of the main point so far. If you decide not to focus on what your top priorities are and you just tackle everything in front of you, you will not make the money you're supposed to make. You'll not gain the freedom you're supposed to get. You're not going to help the people you're supposed to help. You're going to lose energy, you're going to lose focus, and you're going to be frustrated and just tackle whatever's in front of you. What our goal is to work on the things that we're supposed to be working on only. And yes, I know I've heard it called the zone of genius, which is a correct term. Sounds a little, I love the big lead. Gay Hendricks, I think, wrote it, but little aggressive. Just look, your sweet spot, your sweet spot for success. That's where you want to be working all of the time. That's where the money's made. That's where you're happy. That's where you're most effective. And there's certain priorities that make you money and some that don't. Let's talk about some practical examples, people I've worked with, or even my own case, of what I have seen work and not work in terms of finding the priority, focusing on it, and letting everything else kind of fall into place afterward. First example, I worked with a pest control company years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. They were having issues with reservices. Now, if you have a pest control company that comes to your house, they like to spray the outside, but then they will come in and spray the inside. And in order for folks to know that the pest control company was coming back in the day, they would just send a postcard. Say, hey, look, we'll be there Thursday, 3:00. Please make sure we have access to the inside. And that postcard, if it's like yours, it goes into the pile of mail that goes into the buffet next to the refrigerator. They get stacked mile high, and we never see it. And sure enough, pest control guy'd come out and nobody be home. Later, they get the little door hanger. They call the pest control company and say, hey, I need you guys to come back. You didn't spray the inside of my house. Well, yeah, you weren't there. And always a little friction, a little tension. And that wasn't just expensive, but it was frustrating to the employees and frustrating to the customers. How did they make this a priority focus to change what they were doing? Simple. Their priority became focusing on customer communication. In doing that, we have these newfangled devices that came out at the time, magic phones in our pockets. And they decided we're going to send an email and we're going to send a text and we're going to show a picture of the person coming to do the pest control. We're going to give some fun facts about them. And we're going to make sure the customer knows we are coming so they can make arrangements for us to come inside. In a very short period of time, They went from just kind of being busy and going back and forth and just doing the best they could to a well-oiled machine. The customer was there on Thursday at 3 p.m. They knew pest control tech Charles was coming. In fact, they saw a picture of his face. A few fun facts about him. He loves UT football. His pet peeves are rainy days and people that don't smile. Theirs are too. How about that? And they had all of these residual effects that came from finding that top priority and focusing in on it, not skipping around all day. This increased customer retention. It decreased accounts receivable. It increased employee satisfaction. It decreased employee turnover. They found that one thing that made everything else work well, and they didn't skip around trying to do 50,000 different things in a day. They focused in on it. Let me give you a better example. And I know I've probably used this one before, and I'll use it again. We're here in Tennessee, the buckle of the Bible belt. In the New Testament, the Pharisees are trying to trick Jesus, and they ask him, out of the 10 commandments, which are the most important? He said, well, okay, well, it's pretty easy. It's love your neighbor as yourself and don't put any other gods before me. When he answered that, they were like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. That way, if you do those two things, you won't lie, cheat, steal, covet thy neighbor's oxen, and all of the other things, because you have that top priority in place. You're not skipping around trying to remember, like in the Old Testament, there's 630 commandments. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Do these two things, everything else has to fall into place. For me, I have so many days that I'll still, and I'm the guy teaching this, and I'll still have days where I'm checking social media. I'm spending way too long on a post. I'm back in my email inbox again. I'm making another phone call. I'm going to a meeting I probably shouldn't go to. I'm starting to create a new slide deck. I'm working with a client, and I'm just skipping, get to the end of the day. Sarah says, what'd you do? I don't really know. What works best for me, the priorities that I put forward, that my zone of genius or my sweet spot for success is if I'm doing more of this, doing more podcasting, more podcast guesting, LinkedIn Live teaching, workshops, webinars, and then doing some prospecting after the fact from the folks who paid attention to that. If I do that, everything else falls into place. The coaching clients show up, the referrals come in. All the other things, maybe they do need to get done, but it's not a thing where you want to skip around all day, and there's a hidden cost to continuing to do that. One more example. Recently was working with a client, and they would spend hours on Instagram trying to create this perfect post. And when they did a proposal, instead of using a software, they would try to create the perfect proposal. And when they did client work, the digital marketing agency, they would try to make sure everything was pitch perfect. And when I would ask them, hey, did you get to the other things we talked about that was going to move your business forward that you're really good at? Did you get out and teach? Did you meet people? Did you network? Did you prospect? No, I just got so busy. We don't want to be busy. And they were getting to the end of every day, having not worked on the things they were supposed to work on. What should you be doing? Let me give you a few tips to help you figure this out. And by tips, these are actionable, what a buzzword, actionable strategies. Look, I'm going to tell you some stuff that you can do that works in real life, and I've seen it over and over. First, you got to identify what the top priorities are that you should be working on. The things that you do that make everything else in your business fall into place and that you're good at, you enjoy, that people appreciate, and quite frankly, that make you money. It's your responsibility. It's part of being a business owner, entrepreneur, solopreneur. It's your job to figure out what are the things that only you should be doing that make everything else just flat out work. Now, questions you should answer. Does this activity, at some point, will it help me create more revenue? Does it create more discussion about you? Does it make you happy? Do you enjoy it? Because if you don't, you won't do it. Does other people want the service you're providing? Does other people want the activity that's taking place? And it's easy for us to rationalize that everything is important. It's one of the reasons I quit using the little 4-quadrant model, but Covey popularized it. I forget who did it before that, where things are, you've seen what I'm talking about, where they're important and urgent, or they're not urgent but important, all the way down. Urgent but not important, and then not urgent, not important. When I work with folks and hand them that quadrant, they just stuff everything in the first one. Well, everything's urgent, everything's important. I must reply to emails right away. You don't understand. My business is different. I hear you. We're all different. We're all specific. We're all unique. But look, instead, I like to see people kind of track what they're doing for a week, and then they have to go in and prioritize it. And they are not allowed to make two things the number one priority. That's a to-do list. If you do that, then you can realize very quickly, these are the things I should be working on. So once you identify what those priorities are, the second step is to open up your calendar and block out time to make sure that you are focusing in on those when you have the best energy to tackle them. For me, it's morning time. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Morning Charles is an awesome dude. He's smart, he's creative, he journals, he's a good dude. But afternoon Chuck shows up about 1 or 2. He's not very smart. He's playing fantasy football. He's kind of skipping around. We give him the administrative stuff, the boring stuff that just has to get done. But Morning Charles gets the creative task of all the things I just mentioned, the teaching, the networking, the meeting. For you, maybe you're more of an afternoon person. Maybe you're a night owl. Hey, I'm not sure if that's true, but block out the time to work on the priorities, put them on your calendar, and don't let anything interrupt them. And there's other podcasts on how to avoid the interruptions, how to be a grown-up, how to get out of quote-unquote ADHD mode, which I don't know why ADHD is the last disability we're allowed to make fun of. It's like the country bumpkins of stereotypes. So step number 3, don't try to make this a permanent change in your life just because you listen or watch this. Try it for a week, a 1-week experiment. Identify 2 or 3 of priorities. Take one, put it on your calendar, block out time. 90 minutes is the ideal mark for most of us, the length of an Adam Sandler movie. You can do it. You can do it. Block it out, make it happen. Don't let anyone else come in and interrupt it. Don't get busy. Don't say, well, a client called, and have boundaries. Take control. Try it for 1 week. Then at the end of that week, you can come back and review. Was I able to tell my spouse that day, hey, what'd you do? I did X, Y, Z. And for you, what did you? I wrote the best proposal I ever created. What did you do? What did you do today? Well, I went to this networking event that I've been meaning to go to, and I finally went, and I got 3 good contacts out of it. What did you do? I made that slide deck I've been putting off forever, and now it's going to put me in a position where I can go in and use it as a part of a proposal or other content or teach with it. I don't know, whatever it is for you. And it won't be, I skipped around all day and I can't make an answer and I'm a little embarrassed. I can just hide behind being busy. If you don't do this, folks, you're going to be on a perpetual hamster cage and you'll never break the cycle. And there's plenty of people surrounding you that's more than willing to say, oh, it's okay. I'm like that too. I don't want that. Just because everybody else is doing it doesn't make it okay. If you figure out what the right things are that you should be working on, it'll have an immediate impact on your bottom line, on your level of happiness, on your zone of genius. And you're going to be doing more of what you love and doing less of what you don't. Next steps for you, look, go to yourcharlesalexander.com, scroll to the bottom. I got a toolkit that helps you figure some of this stuff out. Join in, tag along, and I appreciate you taking time to hanging out with me today. Work on the things that matter, skip the things that don't. Don't take off just yet. I've created a new program just for you, helping overworked entrepreneurs create their very own 4-day work week in 90 days or less. Look, if you'd rather spend more time with family, friends, traveling, exercising, having the time to do what you want instead of, I don't know, putting out never-ending fires, tackling another to-do list, and checking email at 9 p.m., then go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. If you've created the income you want but don't have the time freedom you deserve, then this is for you. And as always, if you don't, an angel may actually lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.